As we continue further into the mountains that loom in the distance, we will be traveling up passes inaccessible and closed in winter. Our goals today are two lost local wonders, both of which I have wanted to see for years. The first stop today is one I have only dreamed of: the Masonic Mansion. The derelict place we explore today exists almost more in mystery and urban legend than in the realm of facts. While only around 100 years old, this reproduction of a Scottish baronial mansion is extremely unique and seems entirely out of place until you realize the land that surrounds it is an absolutely perfect backdrop of low mountains, rushing streams, and foggy woods. The man who built this enigmatic place, Ralph Wirtz, was a descendant of a builder of the Delaware and Hudson Canal. Being something of a recluse, I have found only a single photo of him taken during his lifetime with his young children and wife standing at the castle. However, it is known he was born in Belgium in 1871, was the heir to a number of fortunes, and was the only surviving son. He went to school at Eton and Oxford in the UK, and later Harvard after moving to the US. He was a sportsman, became a member of the Freemasons, and later married a Josephine Harmar, who he lived with in Gloucester at a mansion called Bass Rocks. As it turns out, his great-grandfather had owned a manor in the early 1800s in Scotland, which Ralph was named after. Thus, sometime in 1907, Ralph came to the mountains and, seemingly trying to reclaim his family's past, he bought 1,000 acres and began to build this Scottish castle-like mansion, which cost $1 million at the time. During the construction, he lived with his wife in one section built off from the original hunting lodge. Finnish workers toiled for 8 years, building 40 rooms that were torn apart, rebuilt and redone to include actual imported arches from gates at a French chateau, marble stairs, modern appliances, slate roofs, 3 heart-shaped stone pools, and a nearby heating plant completed the structure's complex. However, Ralph died in 1921, just as it was almost finished. From there on, the mansion was protected by guard dogs, and few knew what went on at the never-lived-in property, which was fully furnished with tapestries, rugs, and other expensive fixtures. His daughter, Muriel, but a small child at the time, decided to live in the city and visit just once or twice and stay at a nearby house. Ralph's widow was committed to a sanatorium the next year. From here, urban legends creep in, stating that Ralph's widow, Josephine, was in fact locked away in the mansion once she was deemed insane, and stories abound of rooms with no doors and scratches on the walls. Rumors say that young Muriel's guardian conned her of most of the inheritance money, and it was known she had spent $25,000 a year upkeeping the empty mansion and its staff, which became an article of bemusement in local papers. This was not to be her immediate undoing, as Muriel had inherited both her share and her mother's share of the inheritance of $40 million, as Josephine had died quickly after being institutionalized. Muriel later married in 1930 and with her husband set out on a mission to find St. John's gold in England with a hired doctor, some historians, scientists, and a mystic who used a magic willow wand to locate the treasure. Finally, Muriel herself was committed to a sanatorium and sold the mansion in 1949 to the Freemasons to use as a retreat. It was briefly used in the 1950s and expanded in the 1960s with surrounding buildings. Not much is known of what it was used for after this, and it has sat decaying ever since. Upon first sight, one can see why some of the local legends have arisen. It's a very gray and mysterious structure. Arched windows on the outside give it a very gothic feel.
There's a camera right there.
Stories now locally abound of its heart-shaped stone pools of blood which fill up during full moons, while the ghost of Josephine in a white dress haunts the mansion's rooms. Deciding to go down into the side of the archway, we head down the staircase to find them dropping off sharply to a water-filled pit of some kind.
I mean, there's one there, there's one there. Definitely. I don't think we can get inside, that's all.
To the side, some ruinous sections are now just roofless shells. It quickly becomes apparent that very recent changes have been made. The trees in the front are cut down with sawdust present, and cameras, an alarm system, new wiring, and a satellite dish all point towards new security measures, as does the freshly attached signage, boards, and new door locks. It's very clear things have changed very recently, and we start to wrap up the exploration after this discovery. In a sense, it is good to know that despite not seeing inside today, that the grand Scottish mansion of the Freemasons is now being better maintained, as over the years it has suffered from vandalism and decay. Perhaps new plans are underway at restoration. Only time will tell, but this enigmatic castle isn't talking. A haunting hotel. Once a massive 200-room hotel that was the first to cater to Jewish guests in its state, this giant building was built in the 1890s and gradually expanded with more and more towers, side additions, and other smaller satellite buildings. Little is known of the owner, Leopold Bieber, who ran it during these years, and no pictures appear to have survived of him. He was known for advertising tennis, croquet, classical music concerts, a dance hall, and German, Hungarian, and kosher food options for guests. The hotel had its own cows, a farm, spring water, and amazing views from the high towers. However, with the slowing of tourism and travel habits changing, it eventually closed and has sat empty for half a century, with parts being used for horses. It now sits gazing out onto the narrow, one-lane, cliffside mountain road one climbs 2,200 feet upon to reach it. For many years, I've wanted to visit this amazing hotel of towers that sits atop the mountains. I have watched it decay from afar. Today, we're going to see what nature has wrought over the decades. It's a truly intimidating building. Normally, a house will survive no more than 30 years unmaintained due to the slow drip of water damage, and somehow this has lasted longer, perhaps on merit of its sheer size. Even half collapsed, it is quite impressive.
Yeah, it's quite dangerous looking. Phew, stinks.
Through a window, a mess of old furniture and trash.
Still see like the furniture inside and everything.
The backside of the massive building is a scene of black gaping windows and crooked, warped, and collapsing walls and peaks.
No. It also smells horrible. Like rotting mold and... Those all have signs that say vacate, do not enter. Vacate, not vacant. Vacate. They're probably picking people out.
A few geese fly overhead, heading south for the year, the only sound in this place of long yellow grasses and brooding yellow hulks.
It's pretty visible, so... I mean, that's what insulin needles look like too, but... I mean, it looks like maybe they're in the process of emptying them out, but I don't know. Right. So, I mean, it's very exposed. Yeah, there's someone sitting right on a porch over there.
In the back is a row of apartments arranged like a motel amidst a sea of shattered buildings. There is an eviction sign on each of the doors of this newer building. They are all filled with rotting trash.
They must have been, maybe it was a hotel, but I think it must have been apartments.
Despite the smell and garbage underfoot, we decide to enter the main building. An old logbook, an extremely narrow passage, and more bags greet us. The crazy angles to every wall, floor, and ceiling make it quite dangerous. It is clear from the immediate assault of mold and rot that not only is there black mold, but the entire building has been used to dump trash in. The stench is overpowering, and scattered around the ground and inside are used needles. A view through the window shows the chimney is shattered from the pressure of the collapsed floor and the still remaining floors above. Each ceiling is bowed downwards, each wall at an angle, each floor warped. It's a real-life M.C. Escher drawing. The outer wall, too, is bent outwards like a pumpkin's side, demonstrating the massive weight bearing down upon the lowest floor. A similar collapse to the other portions is likely, where each tower has fallen and the front caved in. This room is a knee-deep mixture of refuse and old hotel artifacts, tempting but with no clear footing to be had.
You can kind of see some wallpaper and stuff. I don't want to get too close, so there's all kinds of boards. I don't know what's got nails.
Through more windows is even more trash and clutter. I end up later heading in and snapping some shots on my own, but the crooked beams, caving in ceiling, and warped walls stop me after some time, and I come back with no shots of any use. The inside stripped, repulsive, and somewhat terrifyingly disorientating with the mixture of odd angles.
Yeah, it looks like people have just been throwing a lot of trash in here. Yeah, I mean, there's just like trash.
Sadly, the local village board has decided in 2015 to issue an order of demolition after a meeting in which no one spoke out in the old hotel's defense. Now it seems that before this ever happens, this once great hotel will simply collapse on its own and vanish beneath the long grassy fields that surround it. Until then, it will stay as a haunting reminder of days now long gone by. Explore with us next time as we enter an abandoned hospital in our final mountain land exploration. Subscribe and explore with us today.